Yo, check this out. This is Wayne Wonder, representing for Warwick Hill TV. You see the vision, don't it? See the vision. Warwick Hill TV. Keep it locked.
Now, I'm gonna tell you. We, us as bloggers, these are the issues that we need to address. You understand what I said? You see? Set the path for the youth. Share, like, and subscribe and stay tuned to the channel. I don't know all this. Yes, greetings once again, brothers and sisters, in the mighty name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie the First, and all things that's good and wonderful amongst us. You see, welcome viewers and subscribers. Viewers, if you like the content, subscribe and help grow the platform. Yeah, you know, we're not always right, but at least you know the intent is pure. You see it. Anyway, we all read from a document here where I make reference to our contribution to humanity for centuries, thousands of years of contribution to humanity. We have laid the foundation for which present day advancements are made. You understand me? So, yeah, although I have some critique, I say I don't, I can't read and things like that. I'll tell you this critique. Me no respect nobody's opinion like my smaller brother, my younger brother opinion. And every day, if I miss a upload, it's a man where message me and ask, yo, what go on? You know see it? And them you there. Yeah, you know see it? So we know so sometimes when you come with no intent for derail a process. Like how simple and ineffective uno might claims it is. But anyway, we could get on with the reading of the document, the exploration of I and I past and to the youth them. So big up on yourself, enough love and respect. So chapter 3 with it. You see the historical accomplishments of Kemet. See, the nations of the first world are often held in high esteem for the rest of the world to idolize. And with good reason. Modern technology has created rockets which have taken man to the moon and has launched satellites to explore the furthest regions of the galaxy. The marvelous advances in computer science now make it possible to store the contents of libraries onto disk no larger than a long playing record. But despite these technological advances, modern man cannot recreate the technology that built the Great Pyramid, mummified the kings of Kemet, or built the temple of Ipet Isut Karnak. The admiration of the accomplishment of Kemet has given rise to an entire field of study named in its honor Egyptology, and the unearthing of her priceless treasures, which has brought wealth and fame to archaeologists and their financial backers. No nation in the history of civilization has had a greater influence on the art and science than Kemet, and it is there where one can still find the only remaining one of the 7 wonders of the world. See? For thousands of years, various European leaders have held Egypt in high esteem and looked to her as the progenitor of world civilization and as the seat of ancient knowledge. Admiration for the accomplishment of the ancient Egyptian was so strong that it prompted the following remarks from Henry H. Gorringe, Lieutenant Commander of the United States Navy in 1882. Egypt itself is a book of history, one of God's great monumental record. It was the birthplace of literature, the cradle of science and art, the garden and gardener of the world. In the branches of decorative art and science of architecture, they were undoubtedly far in advance of us at the present day. The architectural types of all other structures of antiquity sink into insignificance when compared with those of Egypt. The Egyptians were the first to observe the course of the planets, and their observation led them to regulate the year from the course of the sun. They were a wonderful race, combining within themselves all the branches which adorn, beautify, and add to the reputation of a people when directed in the right channel. Since the development of the Black Studies movement in the 1960s and expansion of Negro History Week into Black History Month, February has come to be regarded as a time for the official recognition of the accomplishments of African people. Over the years, a number of major corporations have helped to promote Black History Month by sponsoring scholarship and creating calendars, posters, and advertisements depicting the many accomplishments of African people. Of the many ads produced for Black History Month, one has generated particular interest within the African American community. This ad depicts 4 unmistakably Black Egyptian figures and a caption which reads, "Before there was America history, there was Black history." One of the reasons for that's deep, you know. Before there was American history, there was Black history. Very deep. You see, one of the reasons for the ad's popularity is its portrayal of Egyptians as Black Africans and its association with a legitimate corporate entity, the now defunct Eastern Airlines. This specific advertisement has also been reproduced on T-shirts sold throughout the United States and on papyrus scrolls which are sold in Cairo, Egypt. The cultural exclusivity associated with the marketing of these two products is most interesting. In Egypt, the aforementioned papyrus art is displayed solely to groups of African American tourists, while in America, the ad ran only during the Black History Month and only in black publications. It is as if the only time one can be interested in Black history is during the month of February, and the only people interested in Black history are Black people. The history of Kemet should be important to everyone. Not only people, it is the history of Black people. Not only because it is the history of Black people, but because it is the history of a people who have had a profound impact on world civilization. Every culture has had its classical period, a time of high achievement, which provides social, moral, and intellectual impetus for succeeding generations. For Western culture, its classical period began in ancient Greece. For the ancient Greek, their classical period began in Africa, in a century called Kemet. Herodotus, the reputed father of history, provided us with a written testimonial of Egypt's relationship to Greece in the 5th century BCE. Practically all of the art, science, architecture, religion, and philosophy of Nile Valley civilization was directly related to man's interpretation of his immediate environment. The sun, stars, moon, plants, and animal life all appear to have a relationship with one another. And after observation over a period of hundreds of years, it became clear that the movement and position of the sun and the moon had a direct effect on all objects on planet Earth. After studying the heavens, astronomers of Kemet developed stellar, lunar, and solar calendars as a means of regulating agricultural, religious, and civic activities. They also predicted eclipses, plotted the movement of numerous stars, described the method for determining the phase of the moon, and identified 5 planets. They called Mercury, Sebku, Venus, Benu Asar, Mars, Heru Kuti, Saturn, Heru Kappa, and Jupiter, Heru Ap Shetar Toa. The effectiveness of any calendar is determined by its accurate timing of the cyclical appearance of a specific heavenly body. The moon was easy to identify because of the apparent changes in its shape. The lunar month was determined by the interval between successive full moons, which is a period of precisely 29 days, 12 hours, 14 minutes, and 2.7 seconds. The word month is derived from the word mona, which means moon. This lunar calendar was useful, but it had shortcomings because of its difference with the solar year. 12 lunar months is approximately 354 days, which is about 11 days shorter than the true solar year, and 13 lunar months is about 383 and a half days, which is 18 and a half days longer than the solar year. The daily apparent motion of the sun provided a more accurate unit of measurement. Eventually, the solar day and the changing seasons of the year gave rise to the development of a calendar based on the solar year. The solar year is defined as the time it takes the planet Earth to make one complete revolution around the sun, which is a period of exactly 365 days, 5 hours and 48 minutes and 46 seconds. The astronomers of Kemet was the first to develop a solar calendar which divided the year into 365 days, consisting of 12 months of 30 days each. 5 additional days were added to the end of the year, which corresponded to the birth of the gods Netu, Osiris, Isis, Horus, Set, and Nephthys, who were the progenitors of the human race. 12 by 30 times 5 equal 365 days. Yes, we are getting, Yes, I love it, I love it, I love it. This year was subsequently divided into 3 seasons of 4 months duration, which were called the inundations, the cultivation, and the harvest. Every 30-day month was divided into 3 weeks of 10 days, and each day was then divided into 24 hours. The word hour is derived from the name of the god Nectar Horus Heru, who was associated with the sun. The hour of the day represented the position of the sun Horus Heru relative to the planet Earth at any given time of the day or night. This particular calendarial system was based upon the civil year of Kemet. Otonegubora, author of the exact science in antiquity, referred to it as the only intelligent calendar that has ever existed in human history. The Kemites realized that their civil calendar was imperfect because it lacked a quarter of a day each year relative to its sidereal orbit, the exact period in which the Earth makes one complete revolution around the sun. To correct this error, a more precise sidereal calendar was introduced around 4236 BCE. This new calendar elevated the necessity of adding one day every 4 years, leap year, by adding a new year every 1460 years. 4 times 365 equal 1460. Both the civil year calendar and the astronomical year calendar were used simultaneously and were in synchronization with one another every 1460 years. When the first day of each calendar coincided with the ecliptic rising of the dog star Sirius, which also coincided with the inundation, the annual flooding of the Nile, successive civilizations found it difficult to maintain this complex timekeeping system and created their own. The Roman calendar, which was introduced around 738 BCE, was said to have been borrowed from the Greek calendar. It consisted of 10 months and a year of 304 days. The 10 months were named Martius, Aptilis, Mars, Genius, Quintilis, Sextilis, September, October, November, and December. The last 6 names were derived from the words for the numbers 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. In 452 BCE, the emperor Numa added the month of January to the beginning of the year and February to the end of the year in an attempt to make the Roman calendar correspond to the solar year. Numa then created a new month called Mercedinus, which had 22 or 23 days, and inserted it between February 23 and 24 every other year. This manipulation of the calendar caused the Roman year to shift 3 months ahead of the seasons, thereby causing autumn to appear in July and winter in September. In 46 BCE, at the invitation of Julius Caesar, Cleopatra visited Rome and was accompanied by their son Caesarion, her brother Ptolemy the 15th, and numerous servants and scientists. Cleopatra's astronomer collaborated with the Roman astronomer Sosigenes and make recommendations for the improvement of the old Roman calendar. A new calendar was then developed, which consisted of 365 and a quarter days. The year was divided into 24 months of 30 and 31 days, with the exception of February, which had 29 days and 30 days every 4 years. The beginning of the new year was also moved from March the 1st to January the 1st. In honor of the new Julian calendar, the Romans renamed the month of Quintilis after Julius Caesar and called it July, which was also the month of his birth. Upon the death of Caesar in 44 BCE, the month of Sextilis was renamed August after the new emperor Augustus. Not to be overshadowed by the memory of the late emperor, Augustus removed a day from the month of February and added it to August in order to make his month as long as Julius Caesar's. As a result of these two maniacal manipulations, July and August are the only consecutive months with 31 days each year, while the other months alternate between 30 and 31 days. February, the obvious exception, has been reduced to 28 days per year, with an additional day added every 4 years. All of these changes create so much confusion that a rhythm was written to remind us of the number of days in each month. 30 days are September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31, except February alone. Yes, the Julian calendar remained in use for more than 1,500 years, but because it was actually 11 minutes and 14 seconds longer than the solar year, it eventually led to a shifting of the dates of the season. And by the year 1580 ACE, the spring equinox fell on March 11 instead of March 21. In order to correct this error, a new calendar was introduced in 1582 by the Roman Pope Gregory XIII. His calendar is supposed to be based on the year that Jesus, the Christ, was born, although the actual date is unknown. Dates before the birth of Jesus are listed as BC or before Christ. Dates after that year are listed as AD or Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord. Non-Christian refer to dates are written BCE for before Common Era and ACE for after Common Era. A Gregorian calendar corrected the difference between the sun and calendar by deleting 10 days from the month of October, which restored the next equinox to its proper date. Pope Gregory further decreed that February would have an extra day only in century years divisible by 400. In years that cannot be divided by 400, such as 1700, 1800, and 1900, the extra day in February is not added. This calendar is based on the typical year of 365, 2,425 days, and is so accurate that the difference between the calendar and solar year is now only approximately 26 seconds. All of these pales in comparison when one considers that the Kemetic calendar, which was introduced approximately 6,228 years ago, was based upon a year of exactly 365 days by 2,422 days. The Hebrew calendar, which was said to have begun with the creation 3,760 years and 3 months before the beginning of the Christian era. The calendar is based on the moon and consists of 12 months that are alternately 30 and 29 days long. An extra 29-day month is added 7 times during every 19-year period. The year 1992 in the Gregorian calendar corresponds to the year 5752 in the Hebrew calendar. The Islamic calendar begins with Muhammad's flight from Mecca to Medina, which occurred in 622 ACE by the Gregorian calendar. This is a lunar calendar which has 12 months, alternatively 30 and 29 days in length. The Islamic year has 354 days and divides time into cycle of 30 years long. During each cycle, 19 years of the regular are 365 days and 11 years have 355 days each. The Islamic calendar is considered to be as accurate as the Gregorian calendar. The year 1992 in the Gregorian calendar corresponds to the year 1412 in the Islamic calendar. The study of the heavens and the mapping of the stars is an age-old science which requires centuries of observation and analysis. The early inhabitants of the Nile Valley identified groups of stars which were stretched across the sky and whose rising followed each other by a period of 10 days. These stars were associated with the various gods and called decans. The division of the Kemetic year into 36 weeks of 10 days each meant that each week was ruled over by a specific decan or constellation. This is the process by which it was determined thousands of years ago that a circle would consist of 360 degrees, 36 times 10 equal 360. The people of Kemet further divided the heavens into 12 divisions in the southern sky, 12 divisions in the northern sky, and 12 divisions in the central sky. These 36 divisions were then divided among the 3 seasons, and from that delineation emerges the region for the 12 signs of the Zodiac. Each zodiacal sign was associated with a decan who was referred to as one of the watchers of the hour. They were regarded as messengers of the greater good or of Horus himself, hence the origin of the word horoscope. The association of each zodiacal sign was purely symbolic and represented the relationship between the appearance of certain stars overhead and specific activities taking place on the earth below. According to John Jackson, in his book Introduction of African Civilization, when the agriculturists of the archaic civilization of Africa were faced with the problem of determining the proper season for planting their crops by observing the motion of the stars, they projected the animal symbol of the totemic hunter into the skies to become the sign of the zodiac. The original zodiac was located in the ceiling of an observatory in the temple of Dendara. It was discovered by Napoleon's troop in 1799 and dynamited from the ceiling. After a series of owners, it was sold to Louis the 18th, Louis the XV111 for 150,000 francs, and it now located in the Louvre Museum. The inner circle of figures which move counterclockwise like the stars show the astrological sign of the zodiac circling around the North Pole, which is symbolized by the jackal. The outer circle of figures represent the 36 decan. Each one symbolizes the 10-day week of the Kemet year. The 12 figures outside of the circle represent the 12 months of the year and their arms and 12 hours of the day. Yeah, the picture here look one, but I have to go take my own time and work it out for myself. You see. Further clarification of the astrological signs and their relationship to agriculture was represented by Count Volney, who offered us the following for consideration. The Ethiopians of Thebes named the star of the inundation of Aquarius. Those stars under which the Nile began to flow, stars of the ox or bull, Taurus. Those under which they began to plow, stars of the lions, Leo. Those under which that animal driven from the desert by thirst appeared on the banks of the Nile, stars of the sheaf or of the harvest, Virgin, Virgo. Those of the reaping season, stars of the lamb, Aries, stars of the two kids, Gemini. Those under which those precious were brought forth. In the same manner he named the stars of the crab. Those were the sun, having arrived in the tropic, retrieved by a slow retrograde motion like the crab of Cancer. He named the stars of the wild goat or Capricorn. Those were the sun, having reached the highest point in its annuary track, imitates the goat, who delights to climb to the summit of the rocks. He named the stars of the balance or Libra. Those where the days and nights being equal, seemed in equilibrium like that instrument. And the stars of the Scorpion, those were certain periodical winds bring vapor, burning like the venom of the scorpion. It is important to understand the relationship that exists between the astrological signs of the zodiac and agriculture. The agility to plant, grow. The ability to plant, grow, harvest, and store food is essential to maintaining stability among a people who were once nomadic. Agriculture gave rise to the development of culture. Once a people's basic need for food is satisfied, they can then focus attention on other critically important philosophical issues such as who am I, where did I come from, and what is my reason for being. It was the attempt to answer these and many other profound questions that led to the development of writing, science, and religion. Thus, agriculture is the path to civilization. You see why Jamaica so deprived and depressed and hungry. You see that say it here, so? I'm going to read it again. It is important to understand the relationship that exists between the astronomical signs of the zodiac and agriculture. The ability to plant, grow, harvest, and store food is essential to maintain stability among a people who were once nomadic. Agriculture gave rise to the development of culture. Once a people's basic need for food is satisfied, they can then focus attention on other critical, important philosophical issues such as who am I, where did I come from, and what is my reason for being. It was the attempt to answer these and many other profound questions that led to the development of writing, science, and religion. Thus, agriculture is the path to civilization. Some scholars, including the noted Egyptologist Bunge, asserted that the Egyptians borrowed their knowledge of the signs of the zodiac from the Greeks, who, in turn, derived their astronomical knowledge from the Babylonians. Albert Churchward strongly disagreed with Bunge and offered the following rebuttal. The Egyptians had worked out all the architectures of the heavens, and their priests carried all of the same with them to all parts of the world. The Babylonians copied and obtained all their knowledge from the Egyptians. We are surprised that Dr. Bunge should write that they borrowed from the Greek. They were old and generating in decay before the Greek nation was born. Well, may he say that it is a subject of conjecture at that period. The Babylonians first divided the heavens into sections, etc., because they never did what they never did what they knew. They borrowed either direct from the Egyptians or Sumerians. The latter obtained it from Egypt. Astronomy, the calendar, and astrology all played a major role in the development of myth, ritual, and religion in the Nile Valley. The impact that Nile Valley religion and temple architecture had on world civilization will be discussed in a later chapter, but it is important to establish the relationship between astronomy and religious architecture. Many of the primary god nature of the Nile Valley were associated with celestial bodies, a primary component of temple architecture with the precise alignment of these religious structures to either the sun or the moon. The four cardinal points, the summer solstice or winter solstice, the spring equinox or autumn equinox, are star system constellations. The purpose for this exact orientation was to align the temple to a heavenly body in such a manner so as to capture the light or spirit of that body inside the Holy of Holies, which was the most sacred shrine in every temple. This was a place where the priest or king could meet the spirit of God face to face. There are a number of temples in Upper Kemet, Sudan, and Ethiopia, which are oriented to the bright star Alpha Centauri. The great temple of Ipet Itzukana is oriented to the setting summer solstice sun, and temples of Edfu and Philae are oriented to sunrise at the autumn equinox. The pyramids of Lower Kemet are oriented on an east and west axis to the sun, and the pyramids of Upper Kemet are oriented on a southern solar axis. Very little is known as to how the ancient Africans plotted the sun, moon, and stars, but Sheikh Anta Diop makes it very clear that the method of astronomical observation of these architectural structures represent the existence of a sound astronomical science. Diop further stated that the number of monuments that are oriented in relation to the four cardinal points, with an error always below 1 degree to the true north, eliminates any notion of chance. Hear that? Yes, I. And I see it. Man having remarked in the beginning, which surrounded him certain qualities distinctive and proper to each species, and having thence derived a name by which to designate them. He found in the same source an indigenous mode of generalizing his idea and transferring the name already invented to everything which bore any resemblance or analogy. He enriched his language with a perpetual round of metaphors. Christopher Valmy, Ruins of Empire. Symbols and symbolic thoughts played a vital role in the development of all aspects of Nile Valley civilization. There was here that Jabi symbols, no, I'm not Jabi, I'm a brother. Symbols and symbolic thoughts played a vital role. So when they not complain about the status of them where I get licked down, my brother, them we get licked down. Symbols and symbolic thoughts played a vital role in the development of all aspects of Nile Valley civilization. There was no dimension of life that was devoid of it. Architecture, religion, science, medicine, clothes, jewelry, philosophy, writing, and many other facets of everyday living were influenced by varying forms of symbolic expression. It was, sorry, I don't mean say every symbol forget it down. I mean a symbol them of oppression should be taken down. See it? Yeah. The degree to which one understood the abstract and symbol and symbolic thought play a vital role in the development of all aspects of Nile Valley civilization. There was no dimension of life that was devoid of it. Architecture, religion, science, medicine, clothing, jewelry, philosophy, writing, and many other facets of everyday living were influenced by varying forms of symbolic expression. It was a language which communicated on several levels simultaneously. The degree to which one understood the abstract and or practical aspects of symbolic thoughts were determined by the extent of one's education. The development of agriculture require the services of individuals who were capable of plotting the events and identifying the appearance or disappearance of certain stars, which foretold the return of the annual floods, the rainy season, and of the precise time to sow the various grains. These early astronomers were invaluable to their community and were exempt from the rigors of manual labor. Their responsibilities were to study the heavens, to catalog and codify their findings and transmit the information to the appropriate officials. Over a period of many generations, the astronomers, priests, became well acquainted with the secrets of the universe. They discovered the movements of the stars and planets, the relationship between their phases and their influences on vegetation, human beings, animals, and many of the various elements and minerals of the planet. As their knowledge grew, new areas of specialized interest evolved, thus allowing man to better understand his relationship with the infinite power that is called God. The universe was viewed as the omnipotent expression of one great supreme being, which manifested itself within all of the functions and principles that govern the universe and maintain balance and harmony. These facets of the one supreme God was referred to collectively as nature and individually as nature. Each manifestation of a nature was associated with a divine aspect of God and was represented by a specific symbol. As time passes, the nature became known as the many forces of nature. For example, the god of water, the god of air, the god of the earth, etc. Animals were usually selected to represent the qualities of a specific nature because the nature of an animal was unique to that particular creature and remains constant over the years. The following are examples of animal traits and their association with specific nature. The falcon is a symbol for the sun and light because of its rapid flight and its ability to soar into the highest regions of the air where the light abounds. The nature hero is represented by the falcon, and his his right eye symbolizes the sun and the sun's ability, like that of God, to see all things at all times. The eye is also the organ which perceives light and represents the process of spiritual awareness. Similar attributes has been incorporated into Native American names such as hawk eye and eagle eye. Something not add up there, so. The ibis is a bird that sleeps with its head folded beneath its wing, and its body assumed the shape of a heart, which was regarded as the seat of the soul and true intelligence. The footstep of an ibis was said to be equal to 1 cubit, which was considered a sacred unit of measurement. The nature deity was portrayed with an ibis head, and he represented divine articulation of speech and intelligence. He was the keeper of the sacred cubic and the creator of science, writing, and medicine. He was known to the Greek as Phos and Hermes. The Romans identified him with Mercury. The scarab beetle symbolizes that a dung beetle, symbolizes the resurrection and immortality of God as represented by the sun. The scarab lays its eggs in a ball of dung, which is rolled across the ground in a direction that follows the path of the sun. The heat of the sun warms the egg inside the dung ball, which undergo a metamorphosis through the larva and nymph stage before emerging into the light of day as winged scarabs. The ball of dung symbolizes matter. The eggs spiritual potential, and the newborn scarab represents spiritual rebirth. The nature, Kepharia, symbolizes this transformative quality and becomes an excellent metaphor for the process of resurrection. Okay. The ass is a stubborn, passionate, and often overburdened animal. It symbolizes the recalcitrant personality of humans. This personality, like the ass, bears the weight of our suffering and carries us through life, but often refuses to go in the direction we think is best. The ass symbolizes the nature set. Sorry. The ass symbolizing the nature set because, like the animal, he is also of a reddish color. Set represented the rebellious nature of the spirit, that which is often referred to as evil. We see this symbol in the gospel when Samson defeated his enemy with the jawbone of an ass. And then Jesus the Christ rides into Jerusalem mounted on the ass. The jackal dog feasted on carrions, which must be consumed at a specific point of decay in order for it to be of sustenance. This natural instinct of the jackal symbolizes the quality of fine judgment. The jackal is represented by the nature Ampu, scale Ampu Anubis, who was responsible for adjusting the balance of the scale that weighed the heart, soul of the deceased at judgment. The natural homing instinct of the jackal are also reflected in Ampu, who prepares the corpse to serve as a receptacle for the reincarnated spirit before guiding it through the underworld. Aspects of God were also attributed to the nature associated with the Nile River, who was called Happy. The annual flooding of the Nile was a guarantee from the Creator that water would be available for farming, fishing, drinking, and other enterprises so vitally important to the maintenance of life. Happy was portrayed as an elderly male with large flabby female breasts, but symbolizes one who had nursed or breastfed an entire nation. Happy was original Old Man River, and his name is probably the source of the word happy. One of the most significantly important symbols in the Nile Valley was the sun. The worship of the sun was a very complex affair, which continued to evolve throughout the ages. The people of Kemet not only deified the physical structure of the sun, but also considered its many different aspects, its light, its heat, and its rays. Various nature was designed to represent the physical sun, the intellectual sun, the power of the sun in the heavens, and the sun in its resting place. The representation of the sun as a supreme nature is understandable when you examine the importance of its relations to the earth. This planet and all life on it exists because of the sun. The sun's light illuminates the sky during the day and overpowers the light of the stars, nature deacons, which are always present but cannot be seen because of the intensity of the sunlight. After the sun sets, its presence can still be seen reflecting off the surface of the moon and the planets that are millions of miles away. The sun, therefore, makes a fine symbol for the omnipresent power of a nature. The most significant sun nature was Ra, who represented the creative aspect of God, and whose visible expression is the sun. He was the principal responsible for all creation and was referred to in the sacred text as self-created and all-powerful. The term, a ray of light, referred to this nature. Another significant sun nature was Amen or Amon, the personification of the sun after setting when it was hidden from view in the underworld. Amen was depicted as a man with the head and horns of a ram. In the Medu nature, In the Medu nature, the word of God, later referred to by the Greek as hieroglyphics, sacred carving, the word Ram means concealment, and one of the common names for Amen was concealed one. In modern language, the word Amen, which is often used at the conclusion of prayers, also means the hidden one. These two concepts are identical, but what has been lost over the ages in the deeper meaning of the symbolism and the power of the word. What has been lost over the ages is the deeper meaning of the symbolism and the power of the word. The awesome force of the sun was recognized as the primary activator for life. When the sun rose on the eastern bank of the Nile, all life began. Birds would sing its praises. Man would begin his work. Flowers would blossom and insects would fly about. Likewise, when the sun set on the west bank of the Nile, all activities would cease until the next morning. This drama of death and rebirth was played out daily in the sky and the east and the west bank of the Nile, because physical representation of the life and death principles associated with the sun. The sun was born each morning in the east. Therefore, all activities pertaining to life were conducted on the east side of the river, where cities, temples, and palaces were constructed. The sun was said to die each night when it set in the west. So consequently, the dead was buried on the west bank of the Nile, which is where we find the tombs of the kings, queens, and nobles. Upon closer examination, all activities associated with life and death had a symbolic and spiritual relationship with the force of nature, which were called the Nile Valley religion. From the beginning of time, Africans have always had a belief in one God, self-centered and all-powerful. Upon observing the wonders of the universe, man began to see the many manifestations of the one Creator reflected in all that existed and identified them as aspects of the creation, or nature. This monotheistic viewpoint saw everything as a part of the whole, and nature is not God. It is an integral part of that which is God. Similarly, a transmission is not an automobile, but is an essential component to the function of that automobile. Rastafari. Yeah, read again. Similarly, a transmission is not an automobile, but it is an essential component to the function of that automobile, as is every part of that vehicle. Attempts to portray African religion as polytheistic and anthropomorphic or idolatrous are as repugnant as those who seek to condemn it. Modern religion has angels, archangels, messengers, and saints who carry out roles similar to those of their nature. References to Jesus the Christ as the Lamb is just as anthropomorphic as Amon's association with a ram. Reference to the Spirit of God as a dove is just as anthropomorphic as Heather's association with a cow. John Anthony West provided the following commentary on two fundamental aspects of Kemet and world religion: creation, myth, and the role of man. Egyptian religion may be divided into two distinct but complementary and intertwined themes: the creation of the universe and the creation of man and his role in the universal scheme. The Egyptians expressed their religious ideas through myth and symbolism, not through philosophical explanation. In many ways, myth and symbols are superior means for expressing metaphysical concepts, but it is first necessary to be privy to the inner meaning of the symbolic language employed. The keys to Egypt died with their religion. That is why the subject is so prone to controversy. In both the Nile Valley account and Christian account, God is self-created, creates heaven and earth, divides the waters, creates the light, and separates it from darkness and creates man. The parallels between these two religious systems are numerous and striking. But because much of the early research on Kemet was conducted by Christians, historical information was doctored to suit their particular religious belief. John Jackson's give us an example. The late Professor James Henry, Brest, 1865-1935, considered the civilization of Egypt the oldest in the world, and dates the first dynasty of that country as beginning about 3400 BC. Sir Flinders Petrie, 1853-1942, an equally eminent Egyptologist, dates the beginning of Egypt the first in the year 4777 BC. There is a discrepancy of nearly 2,000 years. How do you account for this? Brace studied for a doctorate in Egyptology under Professor Edward Meyer, 1855-1930, at the University of Berlin. Meyer, being a Christian, assumed that the world began about 4004 BC according to the biblical chronology. Brest adopted Meyer's chronology and criticized Petrie and other authorities for adopting an earlier date. The building of the Great Pyramid was begun during the Third Dynasty, according to Petrie. Dynasty the Third lasted from 4212 to 3998 BC. If these dates are correct, the Great Pyramid was erected before the creation of the world according to the Christian chronology. Breasted dates for the Third Dynasty are 2980-2900 BC. This fits into the biblical tradition. The people of the Nile Valley were the first human beings to express a profound belief in a doctrine of everlasting life. They preserved the bodies of their dead by a yet undiscovered process of embalming and entombed these bodies in elaborately inscribed funerary monuments. Prayers and litanies played a major role in preparing the soul of the recently departed for its journey through the underworld and guarantee its safe passage to God in the next world. The so-called Book of the Dead was a compilation of the prayers that were inscribed on the walls of the tombs or written on papyrus scrolls, which were buried with the dead. These sacred pronouncements were discovered by the grave robbers who violated these tombs in search of fame and glory, and regarded these writings as the books of the dead, according to Wallace Budge, celebrated translator of the Book of the Dead. These texts were known to have existed in revised edition and to have been used among the Egyptians from about around BC 4500 to the early centuries of the Christian era. Budge admit that the correct name for the Book of the Dead is derived from the words Peru Emhiru, which has been translated as coming forth by day, a reference to the rebirth or resurrection of the soul of the deceased, a concept that first existed in the Nile Valley. Yes, Rasta. There are a number of significant religious references which have emerged from the book of the coming forth by day. They included the concepts of heaven, the soul of man going to heaven, the soul of man sitting on a throne by the side of God, the heavenly blessed eating from a tree of life, God molding man from clay, God breathing the breath of life into man's nostril, the concept of creation through the spoken word, moral concept of good and evil, traditions of hell and hellfire. One of the most celebrated nature in all of Kemet was Osiris, who is commonly known by the Greek name Osiris. It has been written that at the time of his birth, a voice was heard to proclaim that the Lord of creation was born. The story of Osiris is long and quite involved. He is recognized as a great mythical king of Kemet, who brought civilization to his people and established a code of laws and instruction for the worship of God. He ruled Kemet along with his wife Aset, who is better known by her Greek name Isis. According to legend, Osiris was slain by his cunning and evil brother Set, who cut his body into 14 pieces and scattered them throughout Kemet. After a long search, Aset found all of the parts of her husband's body except the phallus, which, as legend has it, was consumed by a catfish when it was discarded into the Nile. Aset recreated the missing member of Osiris in the form of a Tekhem obelisk, which later became a symbol representing the resurrection of Osiris. Aset was without child before the murder of Osiris, but by means of certain powerful words given to her by the nature, the duty of, who represents divine articulation of speech, Aset resurrected her slain husband. Shortly thereafter, Aset conceived a child upon being immaculately impregnated by the spirit of her husband and gave birth to a son, Horus, who avenged the death of his father by slaying his uncle Set. After Heru reached adulthood, he ruled as king on earth, and Osiris journeyed to the underworld, where he resigned as king. Some of the titles conferred upon Osiris were Lord of Eternity, Ruler of the Dead, and Lord of the Underworld. Images of Osiris in his new opposition of rulership portrayed him as a mummified, bearded king who carries the shepherd's crook and the frail, and sit on the throne of judgment, which was ornamented with a checkerboard pattern that represented the good and evil who were to come before him. Osiris also became the representation of the deceased king, as well as all deceased individuals. He was commonly referred to as the Good Shepherd and is the personification of the cycles of death and rebirth and of spiritual salvation. Osiris' role as judge of the souls of the recently departed was of paramount importance because his decision determined where and how the soul would spend eternity. The heart of the deceased was believed to be the seat of the soul, and it was weighed on the scale of nature math against a feather, which represents the principle of truth and righteousness. This scene of judgment is referred to as the weighing of the soul, and each participant plays a critical role. The person whose soul is to be judged stands before Mark and declared his innocent. The scale of Mark was attended to by the nature Heru and up to Anubis, who verified its accuracy. One of the left side of the balance was a vessel which represented the heart, soul of the deceased, and on the right balance was an ostrich feather which represented Mark and the principles of truth, justice, and reciprocity. This symbolic weighing of the heart against the feather of truth was performed to establish the righteousness of the deceased. If the scale remained balanced after recitation of the 42 Declaration of Innocence, it was an indication that the soul was righteous and deserving of its heavenly reward in the afterlife. The concept of one's heart being as light as feather is derived from the ancient ritual. The nature, the duty, often identified by his Greek name Thoth, is the principle associated with science, writing, literature, and divine speech. Duty rule was to record the outcome of the weighing in the book of life. All of this activity took place in the presence of Osiris, who was seated on the throne of judgment and made the final decision regarding the deceased. The statements uttered by the deceased as he stood before the nature was called the Declaration of Innocence or admonition of Mark. These were the 42 laws by which the person was to have lived his life and the standard by which he would be measured at the time of judgment. They are referred to in Bouge's translation as the Book of the Dead as negative confession and are listed as follows. Rastafari. Yeah, you know. Right on the hour mark, you know. I have not done iniquity. I have not robbed with violence. I have not stolen. I have not done no murder. I have done no harm. I have not defrauded offerings. I have not diminished obligation. I have not plundered the nature. I have not spoken lies. I have not snatched away food. I have not caused pain. I have not committed fornication. I have not caused shedding of tears. I have not dealt deceitfully. I have not transgressed. I have not acted guilefully. I have not laid waste to the plowed land. I have not been an eavesdropper. I have not set my lips in motion against any man. I have not been angry and wrathful except for a just cause. I have not defiled the wife of any man. I have not defiled the wife of any man. Repeated twice. I have not polluted myself. I have not caused terror. I have not transgressed. Repeated twice. I have not transgressed. I have not burned with rage. I have not stamped my ear against the woods of right and truth, Mart. I have not worked grief. I have not acted with insolence. I have not stirred up strife. I have not judged hastily. I have not been an eavesdropper. Repeated twice. I have not been an eavesdropper. I have not multiplied words exceedingly. I have not done neither harm nor ill. I have never cursed the king. I have never fouled the water. I have never spoken scornfully. I have never cursed the nature. I have not stolen. I have not defrauded the offerings of the nature. I have not plundered the offerings of the blessed dead. I have not filched the food of the infant, neither have I sinned against the nature of my native man. I have not slaughtered with evil intent the cattle of nature. Seeing 42 laws of man. 42 declarations of man. By conservative estimates, the 42 declarations of man were written approximately 1,500 years before the writing of the 10 Commandments. By comparing the two documents, one will find striking comparisons. The following list reflects the numbering most commonly used in the English language reference to the 10 Commandments, and those which are similar to the 42 declarations are highlighted by parentheses. I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witnesses against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house or wife. See? When one thinks of the 10 Commandments, an association is automatically made with Moses, the lawgiver. But we must ask ourselves, who was Moses and where did he acquire the laws that he gave? We are told that Moses is credited with the declaration and decimation of monotheism. And we are also told that he was raised and educated in Egypt. Exodus 2:9-10 states, and Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, because I drew him out of the water. The infant Moses had been placed in an ark among the bulrushes by his mother, where he was found by a handmaid of the king's daughter. We are informed by Booch that the ark of bulrushes was nothing more than a small papyrus board. Papyrus is a plant which is abhorred by crocodile, and thus this is excellent material for a boat. Papyrus was also a plant which symbolized Lower Kemet. Act 7:22 informed us that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of Egyptians and was mighty in words and in deeds. Peter Tompkins, author of Secrets of the Great Pyramid, referenced Moses' presence in the ancient Kemet. Heliopolis, the aunt of the Bible, was considered the greatest university in the world. It had existed since much earlier times under the domination of the priests, of whom there were said to be 13,000 in the time of Ramesses III, 12,025 BC. More than 200 years, 1225 BC. More than 200 years earlier, Moses was instructed at Heliopolis in all the wisdom of the Egyptian, which included psychic, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, medicine, chemistry, geology, meteorology, and music. Read again. Heliopolis, the aunt of the Bible, was considered the greatest university in the world. It had existed since much earlier times under the domination of the priests, of whom there were said to be 13,000 in the time of Ramesses III, 1225 BC, more than 200 years earlier. Moses was instructed at Heliopolis in all the wisdom of the Egyptian, which included physics, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, medicine, chemistry, geology, meteorology, and music. Moses is said to have been raised in the Pharaoh's household as a grandson of the Pharaoh and to have lived with him in Egypt for 40 years. John Jackson, in his book Age of Gold and Silver, suggests that Moses was educated as a young priest and received his theological education at the temple of Heliopolis, where he was a disciple of Akhenaten. Akhenaten was the pharaoh who broke with the long-standing Kemetic religious tradition of acknowledging the nature and focused the nation's attention on a singular personification of God, whom he worshipped as Aton. Akhenaten religious conversation was not accepted by the established priesthood, and after his death, some suspect that he may have been murdered. Moses led a group of heretics out of Kemet and re-established his new religious doctrine on Palestine. Jackson, Ben Yohanan, and other scholars have maintained that not only was Moses' teaching of one God a direct result of his theological training in Kemet, but the Ten Commandments represented less than 1/3 of the original document. The 42 Declaration of Matt, Akhenaten influence on the Old Testament text can be seen in a careful analysis of the similarity between Akhenaten hymn to the Atom and Psalms 104. See? And Psalms 104. Yo, that chapter is long still, you know. I'm not lie, you know. I get tired of it now. Not tired of it, like, not educating, but, you know, we like, it's like it's a one chapter book, so it's kind of good just. Yeah. What chapter 4 that? We're on this one. So I read the comparison between Psalms 104 and the Akhenaten hymn, and we close it for today. You know, see, the Akhenaten hymn says, "The world is in darkness like the dead. Every lion cometh forth from its den, all serpent stings, darkness reigns. When thou risest in the horizon, the darkness is banished. Then in all the world they do their works. All trees and plants flourish, the birds flutter in their marshes, all sheep dance upon their feet. The ships sail upstream and downstream alike. The fish in the river leap up before thee, and thy rays are in the midst of the great sea. How manifold are all thy works! Thou didst create the earth according to thy desire, men, all cattle, all that are upon the earth. Psalms 104 now. Thou makest the darkness, and it is night. Within all the beasts of the forest do creep forth, the young lions roar after their prey. The sun riseth, man goeth forth unto his work, unto his labor, until the evening. The tree of the Lord are full of sap, wherein the birds make their nests. The high hills are a refuge for the wild goats. So it is this great and wide sea. So is this great and wide sea, there wherein are things creeping, innumerable, both small and great, and beast. There goes the ships. O Lord, how manifold are thy works. In wisdom hast thou made them all. The earth is full of thy creatures. So, sure, we see the correlation and the similarity that's why, you know, see. So it makes for a good reading, and with a good way, with about a third, you know, see it. So can, you know, see it, continue reading it throughout the month of the Black History Month, February, which is Black History, just a month. Anyway, we give thanks once again. Share, like, and subscribe. If you all don't watch it here, so you don't know. Say yes, sir. See it? Blessing.
Yo, check this out. This is Wayne Wonder, representing for Warrior TV. You see the vision, don't it? See the vision. Warrior TV. Keep it locked.
No, I'm gonna tell you. We, us, as bloggers, these are the issues that we need to address. You understand what I said? You see? Set the path for the youth.